Okay, yesterday was a fine day to wash the Shelby. Today is a fine day to wax it. Of course, when you're going to wax a car, the preferred method is to have the car in the shade. I've already taken care of the roof, so I'm not neglecting it for purposes of this video, but decided since it's such a lovely day, why don't I do a video of waxing my pride and joy 66 GT 350 Hertz rental car. So I have this towel here to block any pine needles coming down. I'm a bit neurotic about plant material getting in or about the crevices of any car because they like to sit there in the channels and get moist and then rot your car out. Comes firsthand from my first car, 69 Mustang G.T. It's rusted away. Anyway, there'll be a few planes flying overhead, so I hope you forgive that. They changed the air corridor route over my area, so now you get the odd plane flying overhead. Sometimes it's less than just an odd plane, and drives me nuts. They're high enough up, though. It's about, I'd say they're about 1.5 miles up. I pity the people that are closer to O'Hare, though, because those things are like 1,000 feet up. So, anyway, let's begin. And my favorite wax, as always, is P21S. This is not a paid promotion of any sort. I don't get any kind of money or kickback from this, but it's my preferred wax. It's made in Germany, and it's 100% Carnauba, so, and it does an amazing job, as you will see. So I will begin here with the fenders. And I'm running low on the wax. I've used it. It lasts a long time. This wax will last you a good 5, maybe 6 waxings, maybe more. At least 5 or 6, maybe 7 waxings out of one jar. It's a little bit pricey. I think it's about $38, $39 on Amazon. But you might find a deal out there. Get the whole fender top. And as I wax, I use the same methodology for when I wash as when I wax. The highest point of the car gets done first, and then you work your way down to the bottom. It's not necessary when you're waxing the car to do that, but I just like to follow form. And this is a fine Memorial Day to be waxing a Shelby. It's an honor to wax such a fine automobile. Thank you, Carol Shelby, and all of your workers and Ford to bring about such a fine automobile that makes me so happy. Of course, if it got stolen, it would make me very sad, so this car will present the whole range of emotions, depending on the circumstance, of course. Of course, we have another plane coming in. Way too high to see the name of the airline, but people coming back to Chicago, I guess, from their Memorial Day celebrations. I would not want to be at that airport today. Would not want to be there. There's the lovely gold stripes. This car was originally a stripeless car, except for the GT 350H on the rocker panels. It had no overhead stripes, as I may have mentioned before in another video. But it looks naked without the stripes, in my opinion, so I had them put on. It's just my preference. I'm sure whoever gets this car at the estate sale, they may strip it down and just have it all solid red, which would be their prerogative, of course. Barring any kind of a tragedy, of course, driving this car while I'm alive. It seems like I couldn't have picked the worst day to wax his car given the sound problems overhead. Hopefully it comes out clearly on the video. There won't be any retakes, let me assure you. This is a one-take operation by an amateur. My dad was the professional. He's inside, but he's not supervising this project. He was. It would make for some unhappy times. He'd be highly critical. Your camera angle's all wrong. The sun's in the wrong area. The lighting's terrible. You just have a lock-off shot. Where are your pans? Why don't you have several cameras going so you get different angles? Oh, Dad, I'm not a professional. Not a professional movie camera, cinematographer, whatever. Just a lowly grunt waxing my car. But he apparently had a blast doing what he did. He loved being in television and movies. So, as a cameraman, lighting man, etc. Doing Hockey Night in Canada for the Maple Leafs back in the 50s. He says that I saw the Maple Leafs in 1963 when I was born. He brought me down to Maple Leaf Gardens and I met all of them. They all held me, shook my hand or whatever. I, of course, was too young to remember that and do not remember anything about it now, but apparently Tim Horton was on the team at the time. I looked up who was on the roster for 1963, so apparently I met Tim Horton, one of Donuts fame, and killing himself in his Pantera. I believe he was coming back from a game in Buffalo. Killed himself in his Pantera, Tim Horton. Ironically, my dad said that he had a talk to Tim Horton at one time. This basically a average conversation. And Tim Horton said he was creating a donut shop and looking for investors, and if my dad was interested. Of course, my dad said, nah, doesn't sound interesting to me, so the rest is history. And I think Tim Hortons has made inroads, well I know they have, into Michigan. I think that's about as far as they got, though, into the United States. They may be in parts of upper state New York, I don't know, but they made a few inroads into the border between Michigan and Canada, Ontario specifically. It's Canada's favorite donut shop, I guess. I'm not a donut eater, so too much sugar, too much fat. Sugar and fat. Stuff you want to avoid in this life as much as possible. Sugar and fat. This wax is going on fairly nicely, but it's old wax now, so it doesn't really have the oomph that it once had when it was new. I wondered if I added a few drops of water, if that might facilitate it, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Just going to go with what I got. Radio antenna here, which is a retractable. It's not stock. I could get the stock one, but this is what I got. I like the flat look on the front end, so I got one that's retractable. And then the race cars, they take that out completely and they put a kill switch there, which I think is a good look. And then the R model Shelby Mustangs of 1965, there's nothing there, there's no hole, there's nothing. It's a solid fender, which is a great look. And also removal on the R models of the dashboard. It's just metal, which looks even better than having a dash there, in my opinion. My understanding is you can tell an R model, a real R model dash, is that there are no weld marks for the dash supports. Somebody told me, or I read it somewhere. So it's just a solid dash, which is made of metal. Those that are making the replicas, you have to grind that down to smooth out the metal. On a real R model, nothing there. No dash supports, which is a little hallmark of that specific 36 made, 35 I think on the track. It's always a controversy, I think about one, maybe two. And of course there's 5R 529, which has been missing since 1966. I just love that mystery about that car. It just disappeared off the face of the earth from New Jersey. Someplace in New Jersey, I don't remember the name of the city, but it starts with a P, I think. That car's just gone. It's just gone. Could be in somebody's collection. Maybe there's some grumpy 97-year-old man who's holding it in his garage and it'll eventually surface. But not yet. It's been a long time. So I think it's better to have the mystery than the resolution. Makes for some good writing, which I actually wrote a story about it, a horror story about 5R 529. I was so inspired by that car, I decided to write a whole story about it. A fictionalized story, horror story. Stephen Kingish, if you will. Hard to get under the wipers with the wax. That is a burden I'm more than happy to bear. And now we're with the microfiber towel. Get on this here. Just short, gentle stroke, back and forth, stroke, back and forth, rubbing it, not too hard. Prop plane. Somebody still fly propeller planes anymore? Apparently so. Yo! You probably can see this from down below. He's flying fairly low. He looks like he's about 1,000 feet up, so I was wondering, what is that red thing down there with gold stripes? Or he didn't notice it at all, because I could drive this car down a road on occasion and there'd be people out. They won't even notice it. It's like they're in a coma. I notice everything on the road, everything. Those are the drivers that are the type that will run into you. They'll just smash right into you because they don't notice. They're not situationally aware, shall I say. So beware. Actually turning out quite nice and shiny and chrome. All nice, shiny and chrome. Use a Fury Road reference, which I actually watched last night on the old tube, the DVD. And ironically, while I was changing out the spark plugs, I was listening to the Mad Max Fury Road soundtrack, which is pretty dramatic, very well composed. Could highly recommend it. I don't recall the composer's name. I think some Danish guy, Max or Volken or something. I don't recall his name. But he did a really good job on the music to Mad Max Fury Road. The movie I particularly like. I think it's just up there with the original Mad Max and the Road Warrior. But you know, you can't replace those. Those are irreplaceable as far as cultural works of art. Famous, 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 but this certainly does a great job of redoing it, recasting it. I like Tom Hardy, did an excellent job as Max, and the rest of the clan. Charlize Theron did a great job too. They were all very good. And the cars that they built for that movie were something else. The Giga Horse, I mean, these are real cars. They spent a ton of time and money and effort to make these bizarre monster trucks on the road. Who would have thought two late 50s Cadillacs stacked one on the other make this massive monster truck called, I think it's called the Giga Horse, and something else. And they were a high horsepower too. These were no joke. You want to talk about collecting a movie car, grab some of those. They're probably being held in reserve for the next movie. So if George Miller ever gets around to making another movie, I guess there's some litigation tie-ups with the Road Warrior Mad Max series. Him and Warner Brothers, I guess, have gotten into it, but it's no good when the actors, the main characters, age out Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy. Then you're stuck with putting up new actors again. So it's no good. You should try to keep it consistent with the same actors. That's my thought on it. But you know, damn lawyers, right? Lawyers ruin everything. You heard it first from a lawyer. But let's not forget who drives the litigation. It's the lawyers are the mouthpieces, but it's the people behind the lawyers that are driving the litigation. So ultimately, who's really gumming up the works? Is it the lawyers, or is it the people that are hiring the lawyers to drive the litigation? I would contend that it's a mixture of both, but more primarily it's those that hire the lawyers. Those are the ones that are gumming up the works. They drive the litigation. But it's all legal until it's not legal. Contract disputes. It's how we settle our matters instead of law of the jungle. Sometimes I wonder though if Wyatt Earp had it right. Gunfight at the OK Corral, it certainly got a faster resolution to the problem. So the problem being the cowboys, I guess, as it was. Never knew that the cowboys was actually a term of art used back in the day. I thought that was something that was later fictionalized, or they're actually called cowboys. So it was interesting. They used to wear red shirts or red neckerchiefs to identify themselves as a cowboy. So interesting bit of Americana. Always fascinates me. This country has a lot of culture, a lot of American culture. It's been around long enough to develop its own culture. Not as long as Europe, of course, but it's getting there. As far as the culture goes, becoming very distinct from Europe. And that's quite a shine. I'm very satisfied with that. I'll remove this towel temporarily, get some wax on the little grill here. I think these are all spot welds in here, so you cannot take the top off. Unlike a 69 Mustang, you can remove the top and get at the cowl. The cowl on this is solid, and it likes to accumulate detritus. And when it accumulates detritus, it gets down in there and it rusts it away. And then you're stuck with 10 million welds, spot welds to remove the thing and put another one in. Sounds like a nightmare, a welder's nightmare. It totally is. I was lucky though with this car, because this is a California car, came out of Covina, California. So it never saw any of the horrendous weather conditions, meteorological phenomenon that like to eat cars. It was spared. I bet this car misses California, probably would like to go back there someday. This car was on, I guess, portions of Route 66 in California, and prior owner indicated that this car had run along the Pacific Highway, Highway 1. What a place to have this car on. I can't even imagine how exciting and exhilarating. It's the pinnacle of life to be in this car on a early cloudless morning on the Pacific 1 highway with the Pacific Ocean to your left if you're going north, I presume, or to your right if you're going south, winding its way through. Wow. So, wow. Maybe that's like the equivalent of automotive Valhalla. If there is a Valhalla, well, that's sacrilege in the Christian religion. There was a time when my ancestors believed in Valhalla. It was a viable religion at one time, so why not just reminisce and nostalgize? That's even a word. Just reminisce. Create your own Valhalla, except it's with automobiles and asphalt. Why not? Instead of fighting eternally in battle and drinking mead in the evenings, you're eternally on the open road. My kind of story. And that's it for the front portion of the car. I will be going over to the rear to get the trunk lid. What a design on this car. It's a short deck lid, long hood. This looks like, thing looks like it's constantly in motion. So I don't know who exactly designed the Mustang Fastback. I mean, it was inspired, I'm sure, by the Ferrari GTO, 250 GTO, which was a fastback design, because the Italians, let me tell you, they certainly know how, they know style. They definitely know style. They're second to none. They're number one on style. And that may have been the influence for the fastback version. I also still wonder if Carroll Shelby just played a bit of a game with the GT350, because I know the Lamborghini 350 GT came out like 65, or it might have been 64, maybe 65. I wondered if he borrowed that and just said, let's just move the GT to front of 350. We'll call it the GT 350. Now, I know the story is that he asked, how far do you think it is from the main office to the place where they were assembling the cars? And some guy said 350 feet estimated. And Shelby said, okay, we'll call it the GT 350. Now, that may be true too, so I don't know. It just seems kind of suspicious, a little bit suspect that there's a Lamborghini 350 GT that comes out roughly around the same time. And knowing Carroll Shelby's propensities, I mean, he beat out General Motors on the KR, King of the Road. He found out that they were going to call, I think it was their Corvette, it might have been their Corvette, the King of the Road. And he had their lawyer go to the patent office and trademark office and trademark it before GM could get to it. So Shelby ended up owning the name. So, but he did take their name. He beat them to it legally, but well, hats off to him. You know, first in time, first in right. And nobody seemed to squawk about calling the Shelby Mustang the GT350. Nobody squawked about it, from Lamborghini at least. But Lamborghini had probably bigger issues to worry about, because they were just starting after a feud with Ferrari, right? So this looks all good. And I think I will log off the camera and do part two. Well, maybe I'll just move the thing. I'll just travel the camera on over, travel it on over, see if we can get a better view here. Put it on the driveway. And there you go. Voila, are we still shooting? Still looks like it's active. There you go. There's the nasty snake on the ground. Nasty, nasty, nasty snake. I also got part of the sail panel here, so I'm not neglecting that. I got that when I waxed the roof. As I said, I go from the top down. I may go over it a second time, just in case I missed a little spot here or there. More wax, more protection. I'm sure that the professionals would disagree. You can in fact have too much wax buildup on a paint job, but my philosophy is, what is the wax doing? It's protecting the paint. You can always pare down excessive wax. You never want to do that with paint. Because once it's gone, it's gone. Not that it necessarily matters with this car because it's a repaint from long ago. Legendary motor cars, formerly known as the Shelby shop. They did the paint job on this car. It's really held up though. This paint job was completed around 1996, I want to say. 96. Going through my first divorce. She left, the car stayed. Maybe the car made her leave, who knows. So be it. It's like the movie Christine. Ernie's girlfriend's jealous of his car. You love the car more than you love me. Siren song. Be predictable complaints. Hey, man's got to have his hobbies. Take away all his hobbies and then he's bored. You're asking for trouble. Ladies. And you're inviting a roving eye. He has a hobby like this. You can keep an eye on him. How's that? How's that for justification? I think Peter Clute did an excellent job on the stripe paint, mixing in the shiny, sparkly stuff that you're supposed to mix in with the gold. Seems just about right. I mean, not that I'm an expert on it. Believe me, I'm not. There's so many guys on SAC that could run rings around me on details. Seriously, I can't compete with that. All I can do is be a student, sit, shut my mouth, and learn. You learn through silence, not through squawking. So I like to listen and learn. The road to knowledge is a humble one, as it is said by the great philosophers of the past, the Romans and the Greeks, and the Germans and the French and so on, and Asian philosophy, a lot of it, a lot of all kinds of good philosophers. Listen, learn, and pick up what you can. And this deck lid, seems like this wax has warmed up a bit. With the constant motion here, it's probably generated a little bit of heat, so now it seems to be behaving closer to when it was newer. Not exactly new, but when it was newer, so it generates a bit of heat. The wax gets a little bit of a melt to it. It's like cross-country ski wax or downhill skis for those who are skiers. It's all in the wax. Of course, when you're cross-country skiing, the wax develops a bit of heat on the snow and creates a little bit of a fluid boundary between the ski and the snow, allowing you to propel forward better. I like to ski on Bartlett's golf course. Which is a bit of a distance from here, but well worth the ride. What a mental therapy for me. Wax in the car. Lowers your blood pressure. It's all health benefit. Out in the open air, breathing somewhat fresh air in Chicagoland. I wouldn't exactly say it's Swiss Alps fresh, but it's air nonetheless, and it's away from the city, away from the congestion. So the air quality's not too terribly bad, but I can perceive just breathing it. I'm sure if you took some meters that measure pollution, you'd find it far different result. But we do it for the gasoline, burned gasoline. It's all good. Maybe the new Mad Max movie should be made about fighting over electric cars, fighting over batteries. It's all about the batteries. It's all about the batteries. I think we definitely need more automotive-related movies. So Ford versus Ferrari did amazingly well at the box office, considering the subject matter. I don't know how that movie ever got made. Glad they made it though. Some people don't like Matt Damon as playing the role of Carroll Shelby. I thought he did just fine. He did absolutely fine in the role. He wasn't quite as tall as Carroll Shelby, but I think he did a pretty good job. And Christian Bale as Ken Miles, man, that guy even looks like him a little bit. He had the British accent that he didn't have to fake, because I'm sure most, if not everybody, knows that Christian Bale is originally British. He has a British accent, naturally speaking. Probably it was a joy for him to use his normal accent for a movie for a change, instead of having to feign an American accent. They had the old movies like Christine and Vanishing Point and Bullet and all that stuff. There are those kinds of movies today, like Ford versus Ferrari. But, positive note, they're making a movie about Enzo Ferrari with Adam Driver. I think he's going to play the role of Enzo. And that might be, well, I'm definitely going to go see it, good or bad. I don't care what anybody says as far as the critics go. I don't care what the critics say, I'll go see it anyway. It's a car movie, why not? Cars are fun. For those that are into cars, those that are into their Apple iPhone, well, I guess Apple iPhones are fun. Not for me. So, I will get the taillight panel here. It's going to be a long video. Might be boring some of you to tears. That's the virtue of the off button. Quick, off! Crap! Can't stand it. Wasting my time. And we'll just scoot over here. Gotta get around the gas cap. Just turn it gently and take it off gently. You don't want to chip. I foolishly chipped it there. I must have been in a hurry at a gas station once, and I chipped a little bit of the paint there with that cap. That's my mistake. I'll have to take the hit on that. Luckily it didn't go down to the metal, but it went down to the epoxy primer. Less than happy about it, but